Hey everybody, what's up? They are in 220 countries. Their hosts have welcomed 820 million plus guests. They have cumulatively earned hosts 110 billion plus dollars. They have 4 million hosts currently. Do you know who I'm talking about? I'm talking about Airbnb. That's right. What's up, guys? It's John here doing an investing video on Airbnb. Today, at the time of this recording, it is Thursday, February 25th, and Airbnb did their first ever public earnings release as a publicly traded company after the close of the market today, after 1 p.m. Pacific time. I actually have a lot of contextual experience with Airbnb, and I think of all the growth companies out there, it is probably one of my favorite. The jury's still out. Who really knows what's going to happen with Airbnb this year? But with respect to the way that the markets are, the markets were in very, very red territory today. And certainly this week they've been in the red, and I'm doing a couple of videos on what appears to be a correction going on between February and April. And I've actually got another video I did on that earlier this week. But basically, I think it might be a good time to consider at some point between now and April getting into Airbnb, because they're certainly one of my favorite growth companies out there. There's a lot of reasons for that, and we can get into the numbers in a second. But what I will say is my contextual experience with Airbnb. Basically, one of the things I do is I've got a couple rental properties here in Southern California. One of them is a very unique and pretty lake villa. It's a lake, a really pretty lake here in Southern California. And what amazed me about Airbnb, I've always tried to become more on the radar and use Airbnb more. And it was kind of tough for me because what it is I was really in that VRBO system. In case you don't know, Expedia is a publicly traded company, and they actually own VRBO. And what was always really nice about VRBO is that if somebody books, let's say a month or weeks or even a couple months ahead of time, they would go ahead and pay me right away. So it was very difficult for me to get Airbnb in there because Airbnb pays their hosts after the people check in. They take complete control over the financial process. What I will say is I've finally, over the last 12 months, I've finally blended Airbnb in with my lake villa rental, and it's been a game changer for me. In fact, just so you know, I had this. I always do longer rentals when I can, right? When I say longer, I mean something like 30 days or more. I don't want to do something more than like 3 months, right? Because then you start to lose that revenue. But for the first time ever, really, what happened with Airbnb is I had folks that left on February 12th, and I had all these people interested. So in between, let's say Wednesday night and then Saturday morning, I had all these people trying to book for like literally a month, and I've never seen that before. So very impressive. Airbnb, they've got their own algorithms, right? So you can't just kind of hop in and show up there. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know everything about the algorithms. What I can say is I have 3 listings as a host on Airbnb, and that does help, is my understanding. But the more that I do with my Lakeville property, the better I get in that Airbnb system, and it's made a difference. Something else I'm going to talk about today is, and I think it has quite a bit to do with Airbnb, is this might sound a little bit different, but the global poverty rates. And the reason I'm saying that, everybody, is because I'm here in Los Angeles. I live in Los Angeles most of the time. And here in Los Angeles, again, this is pre-pandemic, basically all these little hostels, right? There's all these hostels in Los Angeles, and they're on Airbnb, pretty much all of them. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link in the description area too. So if you want to start hosting on Airbnb, you can do that. I'm going to put my little link right down there. So if you listen to some of the videos I do and some that you see some value in what I'm saying, really help if you were to use my link, because Airbnb will go ahead and give me some compensation for that. But basically, the reason I'm bringing this up is Airbnb tells people you can host everything from literally space in your family room. Like if someone was to come in and put a sleeping bag on the floor, you could rent space in your family room, all the way to a whole house and everything in between, which also includes hostels that want to rent, literally beds on a bunk bed. And that's what they do. People literally will come to Los Angeles with not a lot of money and literally rent a bed, and a bunk bed in a shared room with a shared bathroom. And I don't even know what the rates are. They're really, really low. But the reason I'm bringing that up is because if you think about Airbnb, where they are right now, in 220 countries plus, this could be possibly. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying it's possible that it could become the biggest company in the world one day. I mean, right now, I mean, I think that Amazon pretty much has the biggest revenues in terms of publicly traded companies in the U.S. at least that I follow. They're kind of getting close to. Actually, let's take a look real quick. Yeah, 386 million. And then they're a little bit ahead of Apple. Apple's almost at 300. So, uh, you know, uh, anyway, we'll see who's going to be bigger than them. But, what's going to happen is, companies are going to get bigger and bigger as time goes on. At the time of this recording, it's February 25th of 2021. And soon there might be a company that does $1 trillion in revenue at one point. But anyway, my point is that Airbnb, could potentially, it's possible it could become the biggest company in the world because, if you look at all the people in the world, they're going to have to stay somewhere. And if you look at whether you're traveling or whatever, I mean, what's happening right now with the pandemic is even the example that I gave you in terms of the lake villa that I have. It was absolutely surged during the pandemic. Yes, it was a little scary in March. There was some bookings that had to get canceled, and then April's a little sketchy too because people had to cancel. But once that weather got warm in the end of April, early May, it just took off like a rocket. I had to actually increase my prices because so many people wanted to stay because they want to go to a house. They don't. I guess at least in the pandemic back then, things were a lot scarier than they are now, and they wanted to stay in a house as opposed to a hotel. But basically, yeah. So. If you take a look at the fact is that they're going to basically expand, around the world. They're already in 220 countries. 4 million hosts is what they have right now. I think that can be a lot higher. I mean, it's just simple math. It's going to be a lot higher. And they're poised for growth. I mean, they're pretty much, hands down, without question, they have the most traffic of any hospitality site that's out there. Lots and lots of traffic that they have. So I would say it's one of my favorite publicly traded companies to invest in right now. We're going to get into their numbers here in a little bit, but I wanted to talk about, just some quick numbers on global poverty. And so you can see what I'm saying. Basically, let's go back. All right, so the reason I'm saying this is we're looking at 1990, right? Yep, 1990. So global poverty was basically at about 1.9 billion people, or 36% of the world's population. And then the way that they're defining this in terms of the research that I did is people that are living on $1.90 per day or less. And if you actually do the math, that is, I think, $57 in a month. On a 30-day month, $1.90 times 30, $57. That's just hard to believe. Again, it's 2021, a lot different than 1990. But basically, if you take a look at, then that went down to 9.9% of the world's population in 2015 at 730 million, and then 650 million in 2018, and it's projected to go down to 500 million. I'm sorry. 479 million in 2030. So if you even just look at 650 million, think about that. 1.9 billion down to 600. If you just do the math, say here we are, 3 years later in 2021, let's just say it is 500 million. That is amazing. From 2 billion down to 500 million. That's a pretty staggering fact. I don't know what you guys think about that. And I'm bringing it up because I do think there's some relevance to Airbnb because Airbnb is going to open up a lot of people and really, create, revenue for if you have a place. I mean, somebody needs to come in and sleep on the floor with their sleeping bag. You could do it on Airbnb. And again, like I said, basically they have cumulatively earned hosts $110 billion, which is money that these hosts were not earning before. That is, folks, in my view, a staggering number for a company that was founded in 2008. By a bunch of guys that were, I think, in their 20s at the time. Pretty amazing, pretty amazing. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and go into the numbers. So what we have for the numbers for Airbnb are, again, here we are. It is 2:15 California time, after the bell, an hour after the bell. and they came in, and let's just say that Airbnb shares were down big time today, like almost 10% at one point, down 9.06%. And after the bell, they were up as much as 4%, but right now they're down about 0.3 because I don't think people were very impressed with, with their earnings release. And they've got a market cap of $108.8 billion, which is really, really high, folks. In my view, I mean, they went public at a certain price, but it's pretty high. I was pretty interested in Airbnb at 80 billion, but I think that I'm definitely going to be watching Airbnb between now and April. In the event that we're going to continue to see some corrections in the market and the S&P 500. But basically, Airbnb came in at a fourth quarter revenue of 859 billion. The street was expecting 739 billion, so they beat on that, which everyone is happy about. Investors that are pumping it up in after hours at least are happy about that. Next, they came in at a $21 million loss versus an expected $132 million loss. One thing to keep in mind is Airbnb actually struggled, as you can imagine, a lot, right? So when they did their, they did give some preliminary information about their quarter ended in June of 2020, and they had quite a dismal first half of the year, or I should say fourth quarter, because the pandemic, right? It was just literally, and Brian Chesky, their CEO, said it almost broke the company. So basically, what they did is they did lay off quite a bit of their workforce, and in doing that, they made themselves leaner, which is really one of the reasons why they had a lower loss than they were expecting. 21 million loss versus 132. And then let's go ahead and take a look at their numbers real quick. So right here at about 3.6 billion. So they're right in the, literally like right there, pretty much at about what Twitter does. They do have negative year-over-year revenue growth, but that is primarily due to the pandemic, and they are obviously lodging lodging accommodations company, so that's kind of to be expected. But if you take a look at what they did, 2017 going into 2018, 42.5% revenue growth, 2018 and 2019, 31.6% revenue growth, and a very attractive gross profit margin of 73.52%. Folks, that is really one of the main reasons why I also like Airbnb as well, is because I really have an appreciation for high margins, and even when they became public, the margins that they had on the website that showed their numbers, their private company numbers up until that point, which was before December 2020, it was actually higher than that. It was like 80% plus gross margins. So there you go. That is those are the numbers on Airbnb. Again, it was a negative 20% year-over-year revenue growth from 2019 into 2020, which is to be expected because of their industry. But going forward, they're growing and already looking to track almost $4 billion in annual revenue, and they just went public in December, folks. So let me know what you think about Airbnb. But like I said, I think it's possible it could become one of the biggest companies in the world, and I'm looking to get into more of Airbnb this year. I hope you all like that. I hope you liked hearing about Airbnb, and we'll see how they do. I'm going to put a link below. Also, I've got a blueprint I came out with. I cover investing, of course, stock trading, just stock analysis, and investing in general. Also, online income, how to generate income online, credit, business credit, financial independence, and also I've got a guide in there. It's about a 15-page guide at the end. All the groups in the U.S. that offer a free credit score, plus all the groups that offer a free FICO score and the corresponding bureau, and everybody, that blueprint is only $7. I'm going to go ahead and put that link below. Thanks a lot and have a great week.